Good morning, everyone. After listening to the governor, I certainly believe that he understands the seriousness of the situation, and we appreciate his willingness to be a partner in finding serious solutions. And as you know, we just spent the last several months since we solved the initial deficit at the beginning of this year working in close partnership around May 19th election. Right now, our open conference committee is continuing to review the governor's proposals in a very public and diligent way. Not all of the governor's proposals, however, make sense to us. Should we be the only state without a safety net? Should we eliminate efficient programs that bring in federal money? There are tough decisions ahead, but we also have to make sure that we make smart decisions. Everything does have to be considered. But we have to be creative and we have to be courageous in taking the steps to solve this problem. In addition to closing the budget deficit, as I mentioned before I introduced the pro tem, both houses are preparing to enter into a very serious reform process where we're going to look at the role of government. We're going to look at the agencies and departments, some of which the governor mentioned. We're going to see where we might be able to consolidate, how we eliminate inefficiencies, and how we are able to really reduce our expenses while making sure that at least we have some semblance of a safety net and recognizing that we do have to make serious cuts, but not accepting that in this crisis we have to eliminate programs completely, such as Healthy Families, such as Cal Grants, et cetera. We know that there will be cuts, but the wholesale elimination, I believe, would completely reshape the state of California, and I don't believe that reflects the quality of life that Californians would like to have.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Agree with all that you said. First of all, let me praise the governor for what I call a can-do speech. I think that he appropriately put out here that it is way too early for California to throw in the towel here, and that we do have an opportunity over the next weeks to, in fact, show the pundits around the nation that we can continue, and emphasize continue, the work that we began in February to resolve what is now amounting to nearly a $60 billion budget deficit. It is our job to take the governor's May revise, of course, and use our conference committee and use our co-equal branch of government to respond, and respond we will. Our job is to minimize the harsh in harsh realities. And I agree with the Speaker that we must continue to find a way, even in these most difficult times, to invest in health care for children, to invest in college opportunity and college scholarships for the young people of California, to continue to invest in helping people transition from assistance to work, one of the most successful programs we actually have in the state of California, to do all that we can to invest in local government and public safety. And so we need to be surgical about the way we go about cutting, and cut we will. But there is also a tremendous opportunity to restructure the way we govern. It is no secret that 31 years after the passage of Proposition 13, that our levels of government are so tangled up with one another that the public is rightfully frustrated because they don't know who raises the money and who has the responsibility for providing the services. And this is a unique opportunity to take some of what the state currently does and shift it to local governments and maybe school districts themselves, and give them more ability to deal with the revenue side of their equation, so that there is a relationship between who raises the money and who provides the service. That may not be now a reform luxury that we can look at over the course of many months or many years. We may need to do that now in order to mitigate this very, very difficult situation. We'd be glad to stand for questions.
How will you raise revenues to minimize the cuts that the governor's talking about?
Well, this is the way that we are going to approach this. We are going to make the difficult cuts that have to be made. We're going to do so, as I expressed, in a surgical way, because that is our job, to make distinctions and to make priorities. And by the end of that very hard work, there will no doubt be a remainder. But remember one thing. In the governor's May revise, only 62% of his solution are cuts. He calls for accelerating the withholding on personal income. He talks about some fund shifts. And so we are going to get to, the level that he suggests on cuts. And then we will have a debate about, or a discussion about what is the best way then to go forward from there.
Senator, where did the $60 billion, is that a new figure? Where did that come?
Well, I'm just adding the $42 billion that we resolved in February. Subtract the $6 billion from the failed May 19th election, and then add what could be $24 billion to get to that number. Maybe it's less than 24.
Are you saying you want to do the cuts first, then? You're going to do the cuts?
We're looking at this process, and as you know, the conference committee is going on now, and we are certainly looking at every line item that the governor presented in his proposal to see where we might cut and where we might be able to secure revenue. So we're doing them both together.
Madam Speaker, or Pro Tem, could either of you talk about how much agreement you have at this point with the governor and his proposal? Is it a lot? Is it a small amount in terms of some?
Well, I think that there's a lot that we agree with, but what I would say, and as you know, it's about 12 or 14 pages. So I would say that there's a lot that we agree with, but some of the things that we fundamentally disagree with is the notion that we would eliminate the safety net, essentially, in almost every way, whether we're talking about health care for children, Cal Grants, Cal Works, et cetera.
The governor seemed to issue a challenge regarding the boards and commissions. He specifically.
Yes, and I.
Some of those that the legislature has already decided upon. So are you saying you're going to revisit some of those?
We are revisiting some of them.
We will. We'll have a proposal on that subject within the next several days.
You were trying to ask the question.
Revenues are you considering to propose? What kind of new revenues?
We're looking at revenues in a variety of different areas. There are some fund shifts, as the Pro Tem described. We are also looking at some of the proposals that the governor has put in his proposal, the accelerating of the personal income tax. There are several ways that we're looking at revenues, and people are also coming to us with solutions too, whether it's looking at redevelopment agencies, et cetera. But we're trying to be as open as possible.
What about two-thirds tax increases?
What's that?
What about two-thirds tax increases? Are those
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds. Well, certainly, we are not leading with those sorts of options. Again, the way we are approaching it, as the speaker said, is to look at revenue in terms of fund shifts, and to get through the difficult cuts that need to be made. And then we know by definition that there will be a remainder. Even in the governor's own proposal, there is a remainder of 38%. And so how we deal with that remaining 38%, we will discuss with the administration and with our colleagues in both houses, both sides of the aisle.
The governor referenced the controller's letter yesterday, pretty grim, in June 15th. Today's June 2nd. I mean, is there any possibility that you might have something put together within
there might be a possibility that we might have a partial solution by then. I do think it's going to take us the rest of the month to have the complete solution. I can't say what that is right now because we're trying to identify that.
And we will be taking action on our respective floors on at least a significant piece of the budget revision by June the 15th.
I'm sure you've seen the budget conference committees are parading people just come every day. The lines are really long for testifying about these cuts. The governor said today he sees faces and he sees the pain. I mean, that can't be easy for you as Democrats who normally speak up for the.
Well, I hope it's not easy for anyone, to tell you the truth, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. And there's two members here from our conference committee, Budget Chair Noreen Evans and Budget Subcommittee Chair Bob Blumenfeld. And I think all of us, I mean, you know, the story of the 24-year-old who, if she doesn't get her medications, will die of AIDS. The people who are on dialysis, they can't go without dialysis for more than a few days. So all of us hear that, and I don't think that's a partisan issue.
And that's why, again, I want to emphasize that while it is our responsibility to cut because of the magnitude of the crisis, it's also our responsibility to cut in a surgical way rather than wholesale dismantle major investments in the people of California. And that's where we're, you know, making a distinction here, that we are going to go about this, and there will be cuts, no doubt, across the board, but to do it in a way that leaves intact the major categories of investments that mean so much to not only the poor, but also to the children of California and those who are graduating high school with the opportunity to go to college.
Senator, when you talk about the 62% cuts, are you referring to his original May revise? Because I believe
No, the latest one.
The latest
that
one
we-
is
right.
about 62%. If we can show you our chart.
same percentage of cuts without doing wholesale and doing surgical cuts.
I'm not saying they aren't going to be large cuts or painful cuts or difficult cuts. Don't misinterpret anything we're saying. None of this is easy. This is going to be traumatic to a lot of programs and a lot of people. But we are committed to we're committed to avoiding the wholesale elimination of major investments that matter to the people of California.
There was another question about elimination and consolidation and efficiency. Since the governor keeps talking about the Integrated Waste Management Board, is that specifically going to...
We are looking at that. We are looking at that, and I think that you'll see that they'll come back up when we do some of our reforms.
Can you go back to...
Presidency was interested in privately run prisons as a way to save money for the state. Is that something you support?
I think, you know, we will look at anything and everything, but we are, you know, contracting out has the benefit of saving money, but it also has the disadvantage of lowering the number of people who make middle-class wages. And you also have to ask the most important question: how does it affect public safety?
Well,
so we'll look at everything, but we're not, you know, that's not a panacea.
You know, I have particular concerns around private prisons, and I think that there's a lot of experiences in other states that have shown that maybe they are cheaper to run, but in terms of public safety and in terms of their effectiveness, I am doubtful. There's other proposals that the governor had that, example, private prisons. The other one is selling state resources that, I mean, I'm sure we will look at all of it, but I'm most concerned about how we're going to close this deficit right now. And frankly, if it can take a year to sell your house, I don't see how selling state assets or building private prisons is any solution in the short term.
It isn't.
Do you buy the governor's general framing of this as live within your means, get rid of waste and inefficiencies, and raise taxes?
Yes, but it does not. It does not answer or address, I think, another very significant part of what we must consider, and that is what investments are important to the community of California. I mean, when you talk about Cal Grants and you talk about college scholarships, I mean, that is the foundation for creating a high-wage economy. When you talk about healthy families and 500,000 kids who, you know, would no longer have health insurance, that is a huge expense to the counties of this state, in addition to being a terrible choice for the kids who we want to be healthy. So I think that the frame is not wrong per se; it just needs to be broadened.
Senator, Prop 13 you referenced earlier. How can you say that the government wouldn't be untangled if Prop 13 weren't in existence, and what exactly would you change about it?
Well, we know
There's a lot we change about it.
There's a lot we would change about it. Well, we know, for example, that since Prop 13, in fact, right after Prop 13 passed, the state bailed out local governments. And ever since, the relationship between state and local governments has been tenuous, because as the state budget gets in trouble, the state looks to the locals. At the same time, local government has little ability to raise revenue themselves. You know, it takes a 2/3 supermajority at the local level to raise a tax where you tell the people exactly how you're going to spend the money. We think that locals ought to do more, but we ought to give them more ability to deal with the revenue side of the equation, and that may be a necessary reform when dealing with a deficit of this magnitude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you say one thing just about education cuts? Both of your offices before the governor's proposal had thought you could only go to about $1.82 billion in education cuts under the MOE requirements. Now this administration is saying you can go to $6 billion. Do you agree with that assessment?
We're not ready to. We need to look at it more closely. Obviously, education's going to take its hits. We want to look at the relationship between the federal economic stimulus and whatever we do in education, and we want to minimize cuts wherever we can. But we need to look at that before we make a definitive conclusion ourselves.
Well, let me just give you an example, because there are some parts of the education cuts that they're proposing, such as the buses and the impact that that's going to have on rural communities. So I think in general, we know education is going to take a big hit. But how big of a hit that's going to be and in what way it's going to be, that's what we're examining right now. So I don't believe I could say, and I believe that the Pro Tem would agree with me, that we would just accept the governor's proposals in education.
The Obama administration, they've reapplied, submitted their application again to the Obama administration, which is reviewing the application to determine whether they can actually go to 6. Have you looked at that situation?
I think that the administration is requesting waivers and applications, waivers from the Obama administration in several areas, and I wouldn't say off the bat that we would agree with that.
We're not prepared to go to $6 billion right now.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you all very much. Well, that's why we have the conference committee. The conference committee is going to begin taking action later this week into next week in preparation for our getting to the floor on or before June the 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you.